Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Yevamos Daf Gimel. Begin 5 lines down at the top of the Amud. The Gemara continues and actually finishes off explaining the halacha of our opening Mishnah of this Mesechta from the base regarding the exemption of the 15 arayas of their tzaras and their tzaras and so on and so forth. Today's Daf. Some of this discussed in today's Daf are the source for the exemption of Chalitza v'Yibam of tzaras sayin. Actually, Machlokes Rashi and Tais actually what our Gemara is coming to teach us. But we're going to go with Rashi. And then the next Mishnah regarding 6 arayas who can never be in a Yibam situation at all, and hence actually, inversely actually, that the tzara is actually going to be permitted because it's not falling from a Yibam situation. The concept that when you have something prohibited, you can't have something then take effect on that already, it's already forbidden from beforehand. And the Gemara will bring the source for this halacha. So let's open up with the words of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, 5 lines down at the top of the Amud, how so? How you illustrate this? We said that the erva, these 15 women, are going to accept their co-wives and their co-wives, and so on and so forth. Says the Gemara, where do we know this? That saga is patura. That the co-wife is going to be patur. And that's why Taisa discussed the previous Daf. We already said this already once before. We're repeating this. But Rabbi Yehuda says, the pasuk says litzror, which again we said this idea once before, according to Rashi, that we could have said lotzur. What's litzror? So Torah rips at tzaras harba. Torah is including many tzaras to tell you that not only is the tzaras ever forbidden, but even the tzaras tzara and so on and so forth. Rav Shloimy says svari. What it means? He says it's logic. What's the logic? Tzara my tamasira. What's the reason why the tzara is forbidden? Is because of mokum erva kaimam. She is with the same nefila as an erva. So tzara nami. So the co-wives also, but mokum erva kaima. It's in the situation of an erva. She's the tzara of an erva. That she's the co-wife's she's the co-wife's co-wife. Every tzaras erva essentially, and this is Kivege has it just says he's Magia, and it's well known officially this is his question, as we've said, that you don't really need a source with tzaras tzara, because really every tzaras erva is herself an erva of Eishasav Sheish Lebanim. So therefore that's how we know that tzaras is going to be forbidden. Now the Mishnah said, Ketzad, how so? It may suhain b'chulu. If they die, so v'chulu etc. We said, or if let's say they were divorced, whatever it is, the tzaras are going to be permitted. Now it sounds like v'afila kanas, that even if the brother married the foreign woman, and at the end he divorced his brother's daughter, where then they are, in other words, let's explain this. We said that we had these 15 arayas, and we had these 15 arayas, and we said that if they died, if they were out of the picture beforehand, so then they're not going to cause a problem. It's not going to create a tzaras erva. So what the Gemara is trying to say, or what it sounds like, is vafila kanas. Even if, let's say, there's 2 women over here. Try to show this, how we could show this over here, which is the best one. There's a lot of different graphs. Yeah. So this, you have Shimon was married to Sarah, and you have that this is Reuben's daughter. So he said that if she did miyun, if she did miyun or was divorced or anything, and announced before, the tzara is going to be permitted. Now it sounds like, says the Gemara, by not differentiating, that even if kanas ul b'seif garash, meaning that Shimon married this unrelated woman, Rivka, and at the end, ul b'seif garash, meaning only later did he divorce Sarah, the Sarah that's his daughter. They were tzaras before they got divorced. Before he divorced Sarah, they were co-wives at one point. Even so, it sounds like that we would permit Reuven to do Yibam to Rivka. Like we said, if his daughter died or was divorced, since at the time of Nefila they weren't tzaras, So it's okay because it's not a tzara serva. That's what it would sound like. Problem is, the Gemara asks from a Mishnah later on the Flammer Alf. Mishnah there talks about Gimel Achim. If there's 3 brothers, Shnai mehem nesuim beis achayis. 2 of them are married to 2 sisters. Vecha nasi nachers, and one is married to an unrelated. Should see if we have. We don't usually bring for other cases being brought in. The echad nasi nachers, and one is married to an unrelated woman. So Halt Cup. I know it's the second one. Girish echad mi bali achayis ishtay. If one of those who is married to one of the sisters, 3 brothers, 2 are married to 2 sisters, one's married to someone else. So one of the ones who married the sisters divorced his wife. Umeis hanase nachris. And the one who was married to the unrelated woman, he passed away. Ukanasa megarish. One who divorced one of the sisters married that unrelated woman. Right. Umeis, and then this man, this brother dies. Now, this nachris, this unrelated woman, falls in front of the 3rd remaining, that 3rd brother, who was married to the sister-in-law of the first wife this brother had. You can even see how I'm saying the words, how Yevamos this sounds like, right? So that's tzaras, achayis ishtay, but not really. It's mission isgarsha, meaning this brother who was married to one of the sisters, he wasn't married the same time to both wives. He was married to one of the sisters. He divorced her. His marriage did not work out well. Then his brother died without any children. He did yibum to that wife. When he dies, that what we call her nachris, she's not one of the sisters. She is falling for the brother, the one remaining brother, who is married to the other sister. So Zuhi Shamru, says the Mishnah on Daf Lamed, this is what we said in our Mishnah. Shemeso in his garshu, that if they died or they were divorced, so they say the tzara is going to be permitted, because she was not an achais ishtoi of this tzara was not a achais ishtoi to this, meaning this nachris was not a tzara to the achais ishtoi, because it was even before she was even married that woman was already divorced. They weren't married at the same time to that husband. Says Yima, it sounds like the time of the Giddish V'achkach Kanas. It sounds like that there was a divorce of Sarah, and only afterwards did he marry this Rivka. Aval Kanas V'achkach Giddish. But if, let's say, he had married first the co-wife and then divorced the sister, that lie, it would sound like that then you wouldn't have this halacha of tzachasen mutaras. Sounds like actually that then it'd be asur. So that rejects the inference that would sound like from our Mishnah. So Miriam says no, Tavra says yeah. In other words, it's broken. I mean, it's difficult one on the other. Whoever taught this did not teach that. High Tana, the Tana of our Mishnah holds Sava Misma Peles. He holds that the death is what causes the nefila. Meaning, when the husband dies, that's when his 2 wives fall for Yibum. So therefore, even if he had married the second wife, but ultimately divorced her before he died, since at the time of his death, it's not Tzach Zabah, it's going to be permitted. Oh, but the High Tana, but the Tana of the second Mishnah we brought on Daf Lamed, so he holds, and again, this alum, this obviously going into the whole concept of Yibum, Nisun Horishainim, the original marriage, that the woman was married to her husband, that's Mapilim. That's what creates the falling for the Yibum. Because it's that marriage that the Yevamos is taking over. So therefore, from the fact that they become a Tzavos Erva for one moment, as long as they were married at the same time, it's going to make it forbidden, even if, not like our Mishnah, even if she gets Gerushin beforehand. But as long as the Gerushin was not before she got married to the same husband, they were Tzaras Erva. It's Tzaras Achais Ishtoi. It's Tzaras Bitoi. and therefore then it's going to be forbidden. That's one approach. Rav Amma, he says, Lo ilam chad tano. Says, no, it's not true. It's one Tana, our Mishnah and the Mishnah later on Daf Lamed. But vizu ve'in tzarich le'mezug tana. What's vizu? Vizu, in the case of our Mishnah over here, that says that if she got married and they were co-wives at the same time, but at least at the end she got divorced before the husband died, the tzara is going to be permitted. Like we learned in the Mishnah, if his daughter died or got divorced, ve'in tzarich le'mezug tana. They don't have to tell you like the case of three brothers, where if she was divorced before the second wife even got married to that same husband, that for sure. But again, it's not disagreeing. It's called zu ve'en tzarich le'mezug. I don't have to say this, but I am saying it. But it's included in the halacha of our Mishnah. So therefore, according to Rav, everyone agrees that as long as b'shas hanafila, the erva was not married, it's not going to be a problem of being a tzaras erva. There's all these different cases. Saying the Surim Harishayin Mapilim is that the first marriage is what's creating a problem, and therefore that was the first approach. There should be tzaras erva. Now the Gemara finishes off the Mishnah that b'chol sheichoy lamoin. We said that anyone that could do miyun, and she didn't even do miyun, meaning from these arayas, so the tzara is going to do chalitza. So the Gemara says, why? But Timoin, why doesn't the Erva do me and Hashta now? And she could say that I don't want the Kedushin that my mother and my brother made to me to this husband that passed away, and then she'll uproot the original Kedushin with this Yabim, and then the Tsar could do Yibum.
He's dead.
Right, but we said she could do Miyun to the Yavam, and then she'll be uprooting the Kedushin Mafreya, and then the Tzara won't be a Tzara's Erva. Let the Tzara do Yibum. Why are you saying that the halacha is that the tzara has to do chalitza? If the erva could do miyun, so then we say.
Timor and hashta means Timor and hashta to the dead husband. Doesn't mean Timor and hashta to the yavam.
Yeah, well, so what is that? Whatever that means. I mean, that means to the yavam. You can't do it to a dead man. It would mean to whoever you're doing it to, do it now, and then be oikel mafreya. So why can't the tzara do yibum? Says let's say this supports Rabbi Shloimy. Then Rabbi Shloimy says that this that we learned later on recorded this in the previous daf, a Perek Beis Shammai in Kov Zayin. Basil says that if a woman does miyun to the husband or to the yavam, mima'enes, she could do miyun limamore. It's to the maimer that she could do miyun. In other words, that if the yavam does maimer, which we also mentioned in the previous daf for the first time, which is like a rabbinic kedushin to the yavam. So, if the yavam made a maimer in a minor yavama, and she does miyun on that maimer, so she's going to be uprooting the miyun with her miyun. She's going to be uprooting the maimer, but she then goes back to her previous state of zika, and she's going to have chalitza, meaning when she's doing when he did a maimer to this Yevama, so when she does miyun, because she's still a minor, this is what Rabbi Shloimy says. He says that miyun is only uprooting the maimer, but she still remains with the original zika. Maimer is just building on zika. She still has the zika, and she still requires chalitza, meaning, as Rashi explains, that although if there's an adult a widow that the yavam does a maimer and he doesn't want to marry, Ramil says later on Abnun Beis that she requires a get for the maimer and chalitza for the zika. Here miyun will be uprooting the maimer, and you don't need a get. But the einem amen is lezikase. But she cannot do miyun to the zika to uproot the original marriage to remove the zika of the yibum to go out without chalitza. That miyun is not going to work, says Rabbi Shloimy. Oh, so also by the erva, the miyun is not effective to uproot the original marriage to permit the tzara, and therefore rabbinically it's like a tzara's erva. Meaning, maybe similar to the questions you were asking, but he's saying he holds that you cannot do miyun to the zika. The zika is there. It would be because it's the raisa and whatever. What you can't uproot that anymore. Seemingly that's not locha by Mishnah. We were asking, so do miyun right now and permit the tzara. So no, you can't do miyun right now. That's similar like Rabbi Shloimy. So no, it's not a raya that it's oiker that cannot be oiker the zika because tzara's erva shani. Maybe miyun could be oiker the zika. It could be oiker the whole nesun kamoi. But a tzara's erva is different because the Rabban would goizu that she should not be able to do miyun to permit her tzara to do yibum. Because we don't want to be mezalzel in the tzara's erva because you might come to then permit the actual erva herself. Because Lamaisa, it's a tzara's erva. You could just uproot it by doing miyun. We didn't want to let you do miyun now to permit the tzara's erva. Because the Tanya Rambam Becheskel says, miyano, if let's say, we quoted this halach in the previous daf, and we're quoting it in different contexts just to borrow the concept of niris. If let's say the daughter-in-law, a random, nothing to do with Masechtas Yevamos, if a random daughter-in-law does miyun the baal and her husband, so Materes Lavet, she's permitted to her father-in-law because she was oiker her marriage, and it's like it's the girl that his son just seduced, which is permitted to his father. But if let's say his son died without any children, and miyun the yavam, she does miyun to the yavam, meaning with the zik of the yavam, although she's uprooting the original marriage, asur lavav, she's forbidden to the father. What shaykh is why? Says the Gemara, you see from this halacha Rabbi Yecheskel that b'shas nefila niras kekalas, because at the time of the nefila of yibum, at least she looks like his daughter-in-law. Because from the moment that she falls for yibum and she requires that at least have some type of a litigation with the yavam because of the first marriage, so it looks like as it was a bona fide marriage, to make that the wife of this dead one is the brother of that one, and also the daughter-in-law of this one. From the moment of nefila that she requires this daughter for yibum, and that she has to at least do a miyun because of original kedushin. So it looks like it appears that it was a bona fide marriage to be like the wife of this dead person, and that therefore the tzara is kitzaras beat like the tzara of his daughter, and therefore if you would be permitted, you might come to actually permit a bona fide tzaras habas in general. So again, you see how many of these pieces we have over here based on this niris, what it looks like. It looks like, again, we're borrowing this concept, it looks like tzaras bita, and therefore a regular miyun from a minor of an erva will permit her tzara if she did it before her husband died. Once the husband died, so obviously the tzara is not biblically exempt, because she's not a really tzaras erva, because since it was a rabbinic marriage, she's only a tzaras erva midirabana. So the tzara has to do chalitza. We ask, why can't she do yibum? Let the erva do miyun now and be eker l'mafreya. Really, technically, it should be permitted. The problem is, it's niris kitzaras bita because of the fact that you had to do stuff. It looks like it was a bona fide marriage. Bona fide marriage, so this is tzaras bita. It should be part. How are you doing yibum? So to avoid the confusion, we say only do chalitza and not do yibum. We're not going to let her do miyun now to upper l'mafreya. Now we continue with the second Mishnah in this Masechta. We spoke about 15 women that are pointed, so to say. Now we talk about Sheish Arayis Chamuris Me'elu. There's 6 Arayis that are more severe than the 15 we mentioned in the first Mishnah. And what's its severity? Its severity is because they can only be married to other people. They cannot marry your paternal brother. And therefore, if their husbands die, they're unrelated to this person. So therefore, tzarasein mutavis. The tzara of those ervas, let's say it's someone's mother, as we're going to say, her co-wife is permitted to her son, because it's not his. It's only b'malka mitzvah, like we said. The whole halach of tzara is a chiddush. Why should that woman be forbidden to me? It's not an erva. Oh, but it's a tzara's erva. Tzara's erva when? Only b'malka mitzvah. Only b'aleha do we say litzrar. But shlem b'malka mitzvah, some erva's co-wife is not going to be forbidden. Here, these 6 women always have to be. They can never be married to your paternal brother because your paternal brother is not allowed to marry them either. What are those cases? Imai, his mother. His mother cannot be married to his paternal brother because it's his mother and it's his, as the graph shows, father's wife. So that itself is going to make it problematic, right? His mother, Reuben's mother, Leah, can never fall for him for Yibum. Therefore, she's never. It's not going to be a problem about Tzar, because Shimon, his brother, it's his father's wife. So it's not going to be a Mocha Mitzvah. Second case is the Eishes Aviv. His father's wife is also an erva for both of them. His brother also is Eishes Aviv. So it's never going to fall. That erva to him, to this Reuben, will never fall to him from Shimon, because it's also his brother's father's wife. Case number 3 is Vachos Aviv, his father's sister. Again, that sister, that aunt, will never fall for Yibum. So her Sarah, whoever she's married to, is never going to be his paternal brother. His paternal brother also cannot be married to her. So by default, that Sarah is always going to be permitted to them because of the severity. Next case is Achosei Me'aviv, his paternal sister, which means to say that this Dina is from the same father as them. So even if it's from a different mother, it's forbidden on his brother also, because it's their paternal sister. It's never going to fall. That erva is never going to have a case of its tzava being asur, because its tzava is only asur b'mokum mitzvah when he married one of his brothers. Next case is the Eishes Achi Aviv, his father's brother's wife, the uncle's wife. Again, it's a paternal relationship that every brother is going to have. So just like it's Reuben's uncle's wife, it's Shimon's uncle's wife too. So it's never going to fall for him for case of Yibum. And the 6th case is the Eishes Achiv Me'aviv, his paternal brother's wife, meaning, obviously we're talking about, that he had children. That brother, his wife, will never fall for Yibum, because he cannot be married by if there was a brother that had children, that wife is going to be forbidden to all brothers, because it's an Eishes Ach, and it's a paternal relationship that every brother is going to have. So all these are going to be forbidden to the paternal brothers, just like it's forbidden to him. So there's never going to be a tzad of Yibum ever. And if they got married to other people, and those other people had other wives, and they died, so then permitted him to marry, because a tzara of erva is only forbidden when it falls for Yibum with the erva one time. That once you're, meaning even if, let's say, meaning once you fall for Yibum one time, so once you exempted tzara's erva, so she becomes a Eishes Ach Shish Labanim. But over here, again, this is never going to be applicable at all for any of them. Therefore, it's never going to have a situation of creating a tzara of an erva. Now, everything we said up until now, from the beginning of the Masechta, was based on the premise that the tzara of an erva is going to be forbidden. However, says the Mishnah, an interesting machlekes. But Beijamai Matir and Hatzaras, they actually say that tzara erva is permitted to do Yibum Lachem to the brothers. He does not hold to the drush of Litzra. There's no problem of a tzara of an erva, which is, like we said, B'chal Chiddush, they don't have the drush. B'silais and B'sil say no, as we've been saying all up until now in this Masechta, they say it's forbidden the tzara of an erva. Now, therefore, as we continue on the base, Choltzu, if let's say the brothers did chalitza to the tzara of an erva, so it's going to come out, interesting machlekes. B'shamay Posim and Akuna, B'shamay going to say that that's a bona fide chalitza, because the tzara is not a shalei b'makom mitzvah, it is b'makom mitzvah, and therefore that chalitza, like Gerushin, invalidates those women from kuna. So Machshir Mitzvah says no. The chalitza was unnecessary. It's like getting chalitza from an unrelated person, because they're not falling for Yibum, because the Torah's erva is not falling for Yibum at all. So therefore, even though you did chalitza, they're still kosher for kuna. Now Nisyamu, let's say the other way around, that we have a machlekes. Let's say they did Yibum, the Tzara did Yibum to the brothers. So then B'sham Machshir may say, okay, so they're kosher for kuna if, let's say, they became widowed from their Yevamim, because she's a regular widow. Widow is permitted besides a Kohen Gadol. Still say no. Those women are apostle b'kuna. You know why? Because they had beer with someone that's forbidden to them, with their brother-in-laws. They had beer with someone that you apostle become a zayin, and the zayin is forbidden to kahuna. Because according to Beis Hill, they were tzaras erva. Tzaras erva is an erva herself, like Eishes Ach Shish Labanim. So we have two machlekes Beis Hill, if they do chalitza or if they do yibum, what the ramification is going to be. And the chiddush is, even though these said it's forbidden, these said it's permitted, these said this is kosher, meaning that we're going to these two cases, which are huge machlekes in. The school of Shem did not hold back from marrying the women of the school of Hill. Because Rashi explains that even though the children of the tsaris that did yibum according to Beis Shammai are mamzerim according to Beis Hillel, because that's the Esa Eshes Ach, and the Esa Eshes Ach is kares, and the children from Arayis that are chiv kares are mamzerim, as the Gemara says on the next daf. Even so, the school of Hillel did not hold back from marrying the women of Beis Shammai, because they would let them know that these are from the families of tsaris, and they would stay away. Because of course, according to Beis Hillel, you can't get married to them because they're mamash mamzerim. Because it's tzaras elva is a chiv of kares, but still they still married when it was appropriate. Similarly, kol ataras v'tamei show you ilim tam. All the impurities and purities that the school of Shammai Beis Hillel would have disagreements. They would say it's tzara, they would say it's tamei. But nimnu oisin taras elu, they didn't stop doing purifications one on the other, meaning they would borrow the vessels and lend them to each other again because they made sure to do according to the requirements of the other ones, even though they had these huge machlekes. Now, says the Gemara, he says, explaining the halacha of the Mishnah, he says, my time of the Beis Shammai, what's the reason Beis Shammai that tzaras ever is permitted? Which is an interesting question because, as Taisa points out, what do you mean? What do you do if you don't have the drasha of Litzrar? But it sounds like that the Gemara holds that this is something that, if not for this, that we're going to answer that he would have made the drasha of Litzrar. Be that as it may, it sounds like that we're presuming that tzaras ever should be forbidden. So what's the reason Beis Shammai that they say that tzaras ever is permitted? Says Gemara the Chsivik says Bazin Devar. Says Leisia Eishes Hameis Hachutza. Now there's many ways how to translate this pasuk, but the Gemara darshans it that the Eishes Hameis Hachutza. Interesting. What does that mean? What's Leisia Eishes Hameis Hachutza Lejar? Which is the pasuk in the pasuk is saying that the Yevama should not go marry someone else. She has to marry the Yavam. But Hachutza means the Chitzaina, meaning there's an unrelated woman to the Yavam, which is the Tzara, that she should not be. She's the outer woman. She doesn't have an intimate relationship with this. Like she's not an erva to the Yavam. The outer one should not go to Izhar to a foreign person, meaning she should have Yibum. Now Chutza, like we're saying, if it's the outer woman who should not go to someone else but should rather marry the Yavam, Machal Deika Panimis. So that there is an inner one over here which is related to the Yavam. But Machman Torah is telling you, Leisia. Don't marry a foreigner, rather marry the Yavam. So the way Beis Shammai is translating the pasuk according to Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, it's lahed you come to tell you that the tzaras ever should do yibum. The chitzaina of the penimis should not marry someone else, should marry the Yavam. But Beis Hillel, no. And maybe look at Rabbi Yehuda Merav, they needed to dash on something else. Very different halacha. Rabbi Yehuda Merav, he says, Minayin, from where do we know that she'ein kedushin takes and biyavama? Where do we know this idea? We mentioned this many times, that in general, that Kedushin is not teifus in certain situations. And then here, how do we know that Kedushin will not take effect in Yevama? Meaning, if you have a Yevama that did not get Chalitz yet, how do we know, if let's say some other person says, look, your husband died, let's get married. How do we know that Kedushin is not teifus? Meaning, what's the Chiddush? What? Because really, we should say it should be teifus. Because generally, Chiva Lavin, when it's just a negative prohibition, Kedushin is teifus. By Chiva Karas is not teifus, doesn't take effect, but by Yevama L'Shuk, it's just a chivalat, leisia, ishames. So how do you know that kedushin is not teifus from some other person? So Shenemik is in the pasuk leisia ishes mesachutz lizar. What does leisia mean? Leisia b'havaya lazar. The word sia is from the word havaya. As you mentioned many times in Shas, the word havaya connotes kedushin. Leisia is telling you that there will not be kedushin leizar. That kedushin is not teifus. That's what they do with the pasuk. Beis Shammai, they say miksiv luchutz. Does it say luchutz? I mean, the way you're translating the pasuk is leisi eshes hameis luchutz leizar, meaning that meaning hachutza. What does hachutza mean? Is hachutza the chitzaina, or does it mean to outside? The way you're saying it should have said luchutz, chutziksiv, which sounds like the outer one, which is a tzara of the inner one, which is the erva. So they say no. Well-known idea. Kim nechsev chutza, keman nechsev luchutz dami. The word chutza is like luchutz. It sounds like learning the brayso. Yevamos says, so any word that needs a lamed in the beginning, it's a lakaseh b'say for the pasuk can put a hay at the end, and that's like so. Hachutza is like luchutz, because we're telling Rabbi Shloimy says kugoyin elim. We find it could have said elim. It says elima, which means two elim. Machanaim, it says machanima, which is two machanaim. Mitzrayim, it says mitzrayma, which means two mitzrayim. Dibli Saima, Yerushalayim, Midbar. Again, all those words the hey at the end is telling you lim midba, li Yerushalayim, and to divlasem. Now, Rabbi Shammai says the Gemara, Rabbi Merab, this halacha that kedushin is not taifus and Yevamos Lashok, Menalahu, where do they know that from? They cannot learn that out from Leisi Eshes Misachutza. It shouldn't be Havaya for the Yevamot Lachutz, because they learned it out regarding the heter of Tzaras Erva, that the Chitzayna should marry. So the Gemara, they know Mila Izhar Nafka, learn it out from the extra word Le'izhar. From that word, because what's Le'izhar? Sounds like that there is a foreign person, he's foreign, that, yeah, Kedusha not going to be taifis by a foreign person. Now, says the Gemara, now we take a look at Le'izhar. So, according to Basil, you're right. The word Izhar itself should say he's a fremde, he's a foreigner, that Kedusha not taifis. So what do you need? How are you refuting Beis Shammai's drasha by telling me you're learning out something else from here that Kedusha not taifis, and if you're not dashing hachutza to tell me there's an outer one and an inner one, but I thought you knew it from Le'izhar. So you're right, in the Chanami. So chutza lomali. So what do you need chutza for? Again, because Beis Hill is not dashing like Beis Shammai. Chutza means that the outer one, which is the Tzaras Erev, is going to get married because they hold Tzaras Erev is forbidden from Litzra. So what do they do with hachutza? So l'Rabba Sadusa, a different drasha. It's going to include the woman who is engaged. If a woman became widowed from just being engaged, that she needs yibum like a married woman, because chutza sounds like the outer one, meaning she never became in the inner circle with her husband, because she never came to a situation of being intimate. Even though she wasn't married and she was widowed, she's still going to require yibum and chalitza. Now, ve'idach b'shamah, where do they know it from? Mechutza hachutza, from the extra hay. Hachutza, that extra hay is including the case of arusa. Ve'idach misil, chutza chutza lemashmo. No, they don't hold that the extra hay is more of a stylistic. It's not an extra drasha, and therefore they don't know that. Rather, they're limited. They're already maxed out, and therefore they don't learn out the halacha of a tzaras erev being permitted. That's one approach for the understanding Beis Shammai. A second approach, Rav Amai, he says, Tamai de Beis Shammai. What's the reason Beis Shammai that there's no isser tzaras erva, as a more of a lomdusha piece? The ain isser. You cannot tell me that the isser of Eishes Ach to be chal al isser, to be take effect on the previous isser of, let's say, the first of the arais that we mentioned, of bitoi to her father. So therefore, she does not fall for yibum to her father, and it's like she's not even there. It's even about chayis isha by all the arayas. And that's actually, Rashi says, we're going to explain this in the maskana of this teaching of Rabbah. The Gemara, however, asks questions. The Gemara did not understand what Rabbah was really saying. They thought that actually achis isha is not taking effect on Eishes Ach, which, and therefore the Gemara is going to ask certain questions. But really, essentially what it is the way we just explained it, that Eishes Ach is not taking effect on Bitoi and all these other cases which they were pre-existing. And therefore, what's interesting is it's really every erva is really shalei b'makom mitzvah according to Beis Shammai. Just like we said on the previous daf, at shalei b'makom mitzvah, we said with this ba'aylanus. So aylanus is permitted according to one mandam. Why? Because even though aylanus is an erva, so to speak, that ashatela, but you're not even the parsha. You're not falling for yibum. So it's just like these six that we said in Amad Aleph. We said these 6 women, the tzara is going to be permitted. Why? These are very chamadig arayis. Imoy, Eishes Ovid. It's not shalei b'makom mitzvah. According to Beis Shammai, every erva of the 15 women we said in our Mishnah, they're all shalei b'makom mitzvah. Why? Why shalei b'makom mitzvah? It's Eishes Ach, it's falling to yibum. No, because ein issa chalalissa. The previous isser of bitoi or chamois, whatever it is, was pre-existing. The Eishes Ach never takes effect. Now, of course, he can't do yibum to her because it's an ervatim, because of bita, whatever. But the tzara, it's a tzara of an erva shalei b'makom mitzvah because she does not fall for yibum. So the Gemara asks and says, wait a second, that teina checha b'nosa meis. I could understand what you're telling me, where the one who died, he got married first. Then the living brother married her sister. Again, Rashi explained that the Gemara doesn't understand what Rabbi really is trying to say. I could understand the isa of the living brother. It's not his wife's sister. It's only his wife's sister afterwards is already his brother's wife. So the like this case. Reuven was married to Rachel and Rivka. So that's Eishes Ach first. And then Shimon married Leah, who's Rachel's sister. Now, this Rachel, what was the first Isser she had? The first Isser was Eishes Ach. Was not Achis Ishtay, wasn't married. Shimon was a Bucha. Then he marries Leah. Okay? I could understand that the Isser of Achis Ishtay cannot take effect on the pre-existing Eishes Ach, and therefore she's like a nachris. She's like she's not like Achis Ishtay. It's actually a little bit more complicated than what it seems. Meaning, so therefore her tzara you could have yibum because she's not even Achis Ishtay. It's not. We don't look at it like as if it's his sister's wife. It's like Eishes Ach. Now, Tais actually asks. He says, "Wait a second. If there's no Isra Achis Ishtay, do yibum to the Erva herself, because the only Isra she has is Eishes Ach. And it's a chalissa. It's not Achis Ishtay. So do yibum to her." So I said, "No." The Isra Achis Ishtay is again. There's so much lumdus in Yevamos. We just scratched it. So it's called mitli tolabakay. You hear this? There's a word that you hear a lot. Mitli tolabakay. It's suspended in air. The moment you remove the Isser Eishes Ach, because you have a mitzvah of yibum, the Isser of Achis Ishtay, like you made, swoops in, and if it's not, you're not going to be able to do yibum to the Achis Ishtay. But the tzara is not tzaras erva, so the tzara can do yibum. Fine, I understand that case. Ella, but what do you do if Nasa Chai? What happens if Shimon got married first? And so if you look at this case, Reuben is married just to Rivka. Shimon is married to Leah. Rachel was not married yet to Reuben. What's the Isser on Rachel? Only of Achis Ishtay. Then what happens is then Reuben marries Rachel. What's happening then? Achis Ishtay Kadam. So then it should be tzaras erva. Why are you telling me that, according to Rava, for Beishamai, the tzaras erva is always permitted because ein nisach halissa? Come on, I understand if nasa meis v'achach nasa chai, but if nasa chai v'achach nasa meis, the case we're illustrating right now, what was the first issa? Achis Ishtay. So why isn't it tzaras erva according to Beishamai also? Says the Gemara, kivin lo asa issa ishes ach. And so Rashi says this is really what Rabbi meant all along. Since the Isser of Eishes Ach cannot take effect in Isser Achis Isha, so it's as if it's not his brother's wife. Like those 6 that we said in Amal, for Shai, that's what's permitted. It's like it's incredible lumdus, but of course she's an erva. But it's Tzaras Ever Shleib B'Mokem Mitzvah. She's not his brother's wife. It's like, hello? You're not my brother's wife? But in halacha, it's as if he's not a brother's wife. Because the Issa Eishes Ach doesn't take effect. So there's not falling for Yibum over here. So therefore the tzara is going to be permitted. Now the Mishnah continued and said, Choltzu, if let's say they did Chalitza, so then Beishamai Paisel Mechulu. Beishamai said that, okay, tzara is going to be forbidden because the tzaras are allowed to do yibum, and therefore they're going to be puzzle. Well, right. And Beisil was going to be kasher pekuna. This is pshita, obviously. Since according to Beishamai, there's a zika v'yibum. Obviously, if they do chalitza, they're puzzle. According to Beisil, since they're part from zika yibum, of course, if they did chalitza, of course they're being kasher pekuna because no chalitza. What's even the chiddush? What do you have to spell it out for? So the Gemara forget Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. We come to exclude from Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, which he's brought later on after Yidal Mavez in the Brisa. Dami says, "Boyum the sakulam the tzavos come. Let's go ahead and institute for the tzaros, meaning that are arayis, meaning tzaros of the arayis. She choltzos v'loy misamas. He wanted to say that let's do chalitza and not do yibum, meaning that since they require chalitza, that the chalitza should invalidate even according to his meaning. He wanted to say that
You'll solve the problem.
yeah, exactly. Let's just do chalitza and we'll get away with all the problems. And therefore, even according to Basil, it should be problematic. The Basil Machshan is no. Basil says we don't have this rabbinic takanta that for the tzavas they should do chalitza. And if even if you did chalitza, in disagreement with Rabbi Shloimy, and that's what we're coming to exclude from, that no, it wouldn't do anything and it would still be kosher b'kun. Now he said in the Mishnah that nisyamu, that if they did yibum, so Basil Paislin B'chulu Basil said, okay, so these women they had relationships with their brother-in-laws. So there's a sign that she'd pasul b'kuna. But Rashi points out, but truma from their father's household, they do not become pasul from relations that's a chiv kars, which is with a brother-in-law. It's only if she had relations with a chol, a nasan, a mamzer, or a b'kacham, or an evet, as the Gemara teaches later on the Pesach Chesed base. But at least she becomes pasul for kahuna. Says Gemara Sulamali. What do you need this for? There's also an obvious ramification. So says the Gemara, I did this Chotzi, right? The chiddush was for only the case of Chotzi, which was lafuki from Yechim Menuri. So Tanam and Nisyam, we just said the flip side of Yibum, but you're right. That was obviously a walk through that. We knew that was going to happen. Now, relating back to the halacha of the Mishnah, in Yonah de Yomi, Shusham Pilim, the Tnan Hasan. Later the Mishnah Mesechtes Megillah. Mishnah says Megillah Nikers be'achad asa. Megillah is laying on the 11th of Adar, B'shnaim asa on the 12th of Adar, B'shleish asa on the 3rd of Adar, B'arba asa on the 4th of Adar, B'chamisha asa on the 15th of Adar. Le'pachas of Yosef. Not more and not less. He says, how can you do such a thing? How can you have this halacha that you're talking about? What do you mean? Ikri Khan, you should apply the pasuk in the bottom that says Leitis Gaidu, right? You know the pasuk of Leitis Gaidu. That's Leitas Agud Agud. It's not supposed to have that it looks like as if there's two tires. That in the villages, they're reading Megillah on the Yom Knisa, let's say on the 12th of Adar, which is the market day on Monday, Thursday, and the large cities on the 14th and the Mukavachim on the 15th. What's going on over here? How can you have different camps of Yidden doing mitzvahs on different days? When is the mitzvah? So the Gemara asks, what's the question Shlakish was asking? Highlight this guy, that you need to tell us for its own idea, which is the simple translation of the pasuk. When the Torah says, you're not supposed to make a wound for a person who died. You shouldn't put a gedida, that's what this guy do, a seret, a carving, a tattoo in your flesh, you could make a wound, like the Amarium, the previous earlier culture used to do. That's what this guy do is. It says, well, no, in Canaan, that would be the case. Let me call it to guy to do. Should have said that to guy do sounds like a gedida, which is a chabura wound. My tis guy to do. Shemami no, lahachud it's come to tell us another halacha of the word about gudis. That's supposed to make different camps. Says the Gemara, so maybe the whole pasuk is saying that you should not make a gudus. How do you know about not making a wound for a person who died? In Canaan, no. So the Gemara, if that's the case, let me call it the pasuk say either loy to gaidu or loy tis gaidu, which that would have sounded the terminology of aguda. My loy tis gaid did do with an extra dalid. Shemam Tarti is teaching us two ideas: don't make a wound when the person dies, and also don't make different machras. But that was the question of Shlakish had to Rabbi Yechanan, that what's going on? How could there be such a halacha? The Megillah you read on this day and this day and this day. When is the Yiddish people having their Yom Tova? So Malay, so Yechanan said back to Shlakish, says, "Not kind of Shanisa. You didn't learn the Mishnah Mesechtes Pesachim that you could have asked from there." Mishnah says, "Mokum shenagu lasim malacha ba'av pesachim at chatzos." Ois another inyan adiyam. Shloshim koyd machad. Erev Pesach, if there's a minig mokum to do malacha until chatzos, then ois you're allowed to do malacha. Mokum shenagu shaloi lasa. Same like if the minig mokum is not do malacha, then you don't do. So do halucha the nish. Metit malucha the metit nish. What's this? Yes, no. What? How can you have different agudas? So Malay Shlakish says, what? What are you asking? Well, I wouldn't ask from there. I mean, look, I'm telling you, Isser, in other words, that the Rabbanan made it forbidden for the people on the 14th, meaning from like a regular city, if they want to lay on the 15th, they can't. And the people that are in Yerushalayim cannot lay on the 14th. That looks like two different Torahs. It says in the Apostle that they should fulfill the days of Purim in their times, which is Manam Harba, taking instituted many different dates. You're telling me from like a minig? According to everyone, you're allowed to do malacha on Erev Pesach. It's just a place that's stringent. You shouldn't change it because of machlekes. So, but why would I ask from there? So on that, the Gemara asks, what do you mean? You think that it's not an Isser on Erev Pesach? But it's not what the Mishnah says in Pesachim that says Balayla, the night of B'dikas Chametz, Beishami Oishim. Beishami said forbidden to do malacha. Someone Tim Basil says it's permitted to do malacha. Now those who do like Basil and those who do like Beishamai, there's different machanis over here, and that's a terminology of Isser, not of minig. So what are you telling me that regarding Erev Pesach, it's only minig, not Isser? So Malay, Rish Lakish said to him, he says, no, Hasam over there, it doesn't look like two tires. Why not? Because if someone sees this guy not doing malacha on Erev Pesach, he may say, as malacha will do less, he just doesn't have work to do, he doesn't have what to do. And if it doesn't look like, although it's Isser and Mutter, but it at least doesn't look like two tires. Over here, he says, I have a difficulty with Megillah. It mamish looks like two different tires. It says like this guy. So that Rabbi Yechon asked from our Mishnah. That's why we brought this in. The Bahabe Shammai, my team had tzaras la'achim. Shammai permitted tzaras to the brothers. Besides, this also it's forbidden. What's this two tires going on over here? The tzaras erev is asa the mutter. So the Ketin Tabi Dalman Aleph. So now Rish Lakish said to him, Misa but also B'Shamai Kedivrein. You think B'Shamai did like their opinions? Also, B'Shamai did not do like their opinions, and there's no two tires. Because although B'Shamai disagrees in theory, in practice, they did like Basil, and therefore Shlokish says, I still have a question from the Mishnah Megillah, but from our Mishnah, I don't have a difficulty. He says, no, Asu. No, they did, and they did. B'Shamai did like their own, and they did it with they married the Tzaras Erva. And says the Gemara, B'Pulk Rabbi Shmuel, and this is the same Machlokes Rabbi Shmuel had. Because Rambam says, B'Shamai did not do like their own opinion, and therefore you cannot ask from our Mishnah. Shmuel Amar, Asu, and Shmuel says, no, they did, and therefore that would be a raya that you see that you could do different things, and that would not going to be considered. That would be considered like base tires, and therefore you don't have to ask the Mishnah Masechet Megillah. Our Mishnah seems to say also the same idea that we're not concerned with two tires when someone married tires ever and someone not married tires ever. I can do anytime. Posting us.